Welcome, folks. I just wanted to give a little bit of an update as to what I'm up to. I'm currently actually in Oregon, and I'm going to be supporting fellow Team Zookers as well as Green Lake Triathlon groupers for Oregon 70.3. I did bring my tri-bike, but no, I am not racing. I'm just barely 2 weeks removed from an Ironman effort, and no, this is not, even if they were to give me like special things to like go and race, no, I'm not going to race tomorrow. I'm going to do a practice ride as well as a run, and but the real main thing I wanted to do today was to give a little bit of a recap for what happened in Ironman Frankfurt, and to go into a little bit more detail aside from my Facebook post or Facebook video about it, and I want to give a little bit of an idea as to, well, what exactly happened, and what kind of marked down as to what really resulted in my first DNF of a triathlon race ever. So wanted to give a couple of thoughts as I make my way down to Salem, Oregon here. First things is that I want to say I had a lot of fun still, even though I was not having fun during my bouts when I was puking a couple times on the run course, which of course is never a fun thing. But I mean, it was a lot of lessons learned as it relates to racing in the heat and having a little bit better nutrition strategy. I think my nutrition strategy going into the race I thought was fine, but with what I was eating, I think I probably could have taken more liquid as opposed to solid food, which I think was probably one of the bigger contributors. It also didn't help that the water was just really not as, it just wasn't going down me as well as I would have thought it would have. But, you know, that's kind of part of race day, and you gotta live with those conditions. But to kind of walk through with how that race went, I had a fantastic swim. The swim was under 1 hour. It was 59 minutes and 20-something seconds, which was right on pace with where I wanted to be. And overall, I mean, going into the race, kind of pre-race, woke up a little bit earlier than I thought I would, and I probably had a little bit of race jitters, but I got prepared a little bit earlier, and I mean, I was about as loose as I could be, so really no point in trying to sleep any more than I could, and there's just too much energy, stored energy in me. So so with that, I woke up around 3:45 in the morning, when I had my bananas for breakfast, had a noon glass, and also put in a little bit of carbohydrate in me. I didn't really load up too much. Then went and was walking to the transition buses, and then I realized I forgot my triple electrolyte solution, and I had to go back to the hotel. Fortunately, I had a lot of time, but that meant that I had to have a really quick transition, at least a transition setup, and that was pretty easy to do. I was in and out within 15 minutes, not really much of an issue there. Then, after transition, then got set up. This was a wetsuit legal swim. I decided to elect to not wear the wetsuit, as I had previously mentioned in other videos, and that turned out to still be the right decision, because I thought it was a perfect water temperature to swim without a wetsuit. If I had swam with the wetsuit, I probably would have overheated, and that would not have been fun. So, yeah, so the swim was probably the best execution of everything. Then, coming out of the swim, I elected to take in a cyst gel that had 40 grams of electrolyte rather than 24, or 22, excuse me. And that was a lot of carbohydrate to put in, but I knew that I was going to be running a little bit of a deficit going out of the swim, so that to me didn't seem like too big of an issue. And then and so I was thinking, okay, well, maybe let me go out for the first 40 minutes without having carbohydrate intake, because I already had that. So I kind of was going in a game plan of right around every 30 to 40 minutes have at least 20 to 30 grams, but knowing I took in 40 plus grams a little bit early so I could wait a little bit. That turned out to be fine. And then I decided right around 40 minutes in, I decided to take the Cliff Blocks, which was part of the nutrition strategy. I was a little bit worried about not having enough calories on the bike, and I guess spoiler alert, it ends up being I took too many calories. So coming out so after the 40 grams, then I took in another 20 from the Cliff Blocks, which was 100 calories, and then an hour and 20 minutes in, I took my first bonk breaker and took in fluids every about 5 to 7 minutes, which I think in hindsight probably could have been a little bit more. And then things, I kind of went away a little bit from plan, and I started drinking every 5 to 7 rather than 3 to 5, which I think was part of the problem. They had water at every aid station, so I took advantage of that, and that was kind of part of the plan. And then at an hour and a half, I took in another 20 grams of carbohydrate, in addition, of course, to from the bonk breaker. So I was actually running a little bit over by about 100 calories. When I took a look at the numbers, I realized I was consuming about 350 calories in an hour, which is a little bit much for me. Normally I go around 250, and most athletes can't even consume more than 300. So I mean, I was definitely over consuming calories, and I didn't really know at the time, because it's one of those domino spiraling effects. Then I was still drinking fluid, but it was just carbohydrate that was just sitting in my stomach without me realizing it, because I was going up some pretty gnarly climbs at that time. Then 2.5 hours to 3 hours, I mean, I still was feeling relatively good, but I was still eating a lot of carbohydrate. And so the Cliff Blocks also have tapioca syrup, which is a little bit more solid and can cause a little bit more gastrointestinal distress if you haven't really trained as much. Like, I haven't really trained much with Cliff Blocks, but I have taken Cliff Blocks in a race, so I know what it is, but I've done it during 70.3 races, not 140.6. So in hindsight, I probably should not have done that. I should have done just normal cyst gels, which was what I did in training. But what I did in training was about 15 to 20 watts higher. So the first 65, 70 miles, I was averaging 213 watts with a normalized power of 227, which was right around my goal of 215 regular, 230 normalized power. So I was right on schedule there. And then, but from there, things kind of started after I had to use the restroom to take a little bit of a piss right around 60 miles in. And that was fruitful. I was able to crank out a lot of power, but then I kind of felt like there was probably something going on, because the power just started dropping a little bit. I was still consuming kind of on a regular schedule, but I was consuming a lot more carbohydrates. I had some carbohydrate gels, some gummies more during the hours 2 to 3, and I think I went away a little bit from plan, which I really shouldn't have in hindsight. And that kind of led to a spiraling out of control for the bike. Once I hit around 70 miles, that's when I knew, okay, something was going on, because I wasn't having as good of a time trying to crank out power. I could crank the power up hills, but I was getting a little bit of a hard time trying to put out power on the flats. And I was also sweating a little bit less, so okay, something was going on, and I think the rest is there. From mile 70 onwards, it was kind of a battle to get fluids in, and what also was happening was, so the electrolyte solution I had was triple noon. In hindsight, I probably should have just stuck with a single or a double, because I was sweating a little bit more fluid as opposed to electrolyte. And with triple noon, it tends to be an acidic solution, which I think only contributed to the problems that I was having. So I think really from there, it was a matter of trying to get myself kind of back and regain my composure, and I was able to keep the high speed mainly because there's just so many fast people on the bike course. Looks like I'm stopping here because there's apparently some roadkill. What was happening from mile 70 onwards, I mean, it was just basically a battle, just trying to stay on top of just fluid intake, and I was spraying myself down as much as I could. I also was wearing black calf sleeves, and that turned out to not be the smartest decision because in the beginning, I first thought it was working out all right, and then I was trying to water myself down a little bit, and then like 3 minutes later, the calf sleeves would dry up, and then they would start heating up. So sorry, that's my Waze telling me, okay, I'm 5 miles away from where I need to be. Okay, so aside from, right around between 70 and 110, especially at mile 100, it started getting really tough. And yeah, it was not the greatest feeling. I was having a hard time breathing, and oh boy, there's a lot of debris on the road here. Ultimately, where ended up being is, sorry about that. Just had to clear out of the way. There was someone decided to dump all their clothes out on the road, which is not the smartest thing to do. But once I got through that, then yeah, the rest of the bike ride I was still able to finish. I was hoping for a sub 5 hour bike ride, but I ended up around 5 hours and 10 minutes. But I definitely was not in the most best of shape. My stomach was definitely not feeling great, and I was having a little bit of a hard time breathing. I kind of took my time in transition, T2, got myself a towel to kind of rinse off at least a few of the or at least to wipe off a few of the places that I knew I was going to reapply some Body Glide in preparation for the run. And a little before I hold, I started running. The first mile was right on target, but after that first mile, I knew things were definitely wrong because my stomach started acting up and I wasn't sweating as much. I was trying to put towels on me and my body just wasn't sweating, which was a big problem. And I was trying to get fluids in, but my stomach was having a hard time even handling anything. And before I knew it, I mean, I was able to run the first 5-6 miles, and then mile 7 was I mean, my stomach finally gave way and had to puke through mile 7, and then to walk, I kind of was running a little bit, trying to get some more fluids in, and I knew I was in absolute trouble because I was trying to take a graham cracker and I had zero fluid. Like, I couldn't produce any saliva, so I knew right away I was really dehydrated. And of course, with the first view, that wasn't helping matters either. Like, the salted kind of pseudo water was definitely not helping on the run course, thinking, okay, maybe I could get a little bit of electrolyte in, but my body wasn't having any of that either. And so right at around mile 10, buked again, and then so I walked basically for 4 to 5 miles and run 3 miles, and then the last 2 miles I ended up just walking, and my stomach couldn't take anymore, and I was starting to feel a little dizzy. And then the medical tent appeared at mile 15, and I just said, you know what, I've got to go to the medical tent, get myself checked out, get some IV fluids, and call it the day, because I was not going to continue with my body the way it was. So that's kind of what happened. And I think overall, I think part of it is that having too much calories on the bike, I think, contributed to a lot of the problems that I had. And that's a big lesson learning for me right now. Is I'm just going to go more of a liquid diet, and I'm going to challenge my assumption that I need a lot of protein on the bike, which I think it's important to still get some of it, but maybe I can only consume so many calories and so much carbohydrates. So that was basically the race, but I still had a lot of fun. I mean, it was great to see all the crowd support there. I mean, right, each one of the 4 loops, even though I only was able to complete 2.5. the run support is there, and it's a ton of fun. And after I got the IV in, I was able to basically walk around. I was in the medical tent for 2 hours to try to recompose myself, and then I was able to get food and water in back at the hotel once I was able to get back there, and then I posted my Facebook video kind of saying what the results were, and then from there, yeah, so gonna let this come on. So from there, yeah, that's basically what happened in the race. So that's Frankfurt for you. But now my next race coming up is the New York City Triathlon, which is coming up in 2 weeks from tomorrow. So today's the 9th of July, so it's coming up on the 24th of July. But for right now, I'm just going to have fun to cheer on fellow teammates here in Ironman Oregon, and just go out there and have fun. I'm also going to be riding the Ironman Oregon bike course as part of training, and aside from that training, I'll also have the bike ride. I'll also have a brick run to do, only 5K easy, and then really start hammering it in next week as part of preparation for the series of Olympic distance events. I'm mainly going to be training through those, and then, so again, New York City Triathlon is the next one coming up. Then I've also got the USAT National Championships in Milwaukee, so I'll see folks in Milwaukee for that. There'll be videos for both those triathlons, and then I'm also planning on doing Ironman Washington 70.3. I haven't signed up for that yet. And then I will also do, I also have Ironman World Championships coming up as well. So that's really my biggest of big races that I've got to absolutely nail down end of October. And of course, I'll bring a video for that. But aside from that, that's the rest of my race schedule. I'm pretty much ready to move. I'm kind of already mentally moved on. Here's the next race, and just ready to go into tag training again, which is always a good thing, and just more or less having a little bit of fun with it now that I don't have to train the ridiculous 7 hours of training in a day. Now the max hours in a day is probably around 4, maybe 4.5, which are still long days, but it's easier. So now that I've just around the Salem outskirts, I'm going to start to get ready to get to the bike. So I'm gonna sign off from here, but of course, if you like the content of this video, if you like this style, then go ahead and hit that thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and of course hit the bell notifications for any of the latest and greatest videos I go and post. And until then, I'll see you in the next one. Yoshi out.